Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Strategic Rap Intelligence. In this edition, I, your host, Robert Lee Taylor, will address the issue of interrelations between North Korea and South Korea and the mishandling thereof by the current U.S. presidential administration. I will discuss Barack Hussein Obama's incompetence with regard to the matter, as well as provide a simple alternative solution to the current dispute in East Asia. I begin by citing an online article by Donald Kirk of the Christian Science Monitor titled "Diplomatic Stance Trumps Tough Talk on North Korea," dated May 26, 2010. In this article, Lee Jong-min, Dean of the Graduate School of International Studies at Yonsei University, is quoted as having said, "Things are not going to escalate beyond a certain level." He then said, "The objective is to make sure it does not go beyond a certain point." End quote. He said those things in regard to the situation in North and South Korea. My analysis is that despite Lee Jong-min's remarks being seemingly logical, the entire situation in North and South Korea could have been and could still be handled in a much simpler way, and that these types of disputes should never escalate to the point that they have in the first place. It's illogical and irrational for both North and South Korea to continually push the situation in the region, on the peninsula, to the brink of war. It should be so far from the phase of war, the level of going to war, that war is not even a remote possibility. It should never be on that level. It should never come to war. There should never be any talk of war. If you notice, there are these media organizations, these people who write these online journals and articles, and the first thing out of their mouths is war. It's as if they are trying to bring about war. It's as if they are subconsciously trying to materialize war, that they are trying to bring war into reality. People need to understand that their speeches, their mannerisms, the things that they write, they have consequences. They have, repercussions. These things go out into the universe, and these ideas circulate, and there are weak-minded people who take these things to heart, and they believe things that are not necessarily true. War should never even be mentioned. The word war should not be on the lips of both North and South Korea. Either North or South Korea. Neither North or South Korea. No one in North or South Korea should ever use the word war. They should ban the word war. It should be banned like the N-word should be banned if, people are serious about making changes. Barack Obama has not handled this situation properly. As the President of the United States of America, or the so-called President of the United States of America, he has had an opportunity to sit down with North Korea. He is playing a very dangerous game. He is very reckless, very irresponsible, and once again, this is a con of his. He is a con man. This is a man who told you, the people, that he was going to bring the troops home. The troops are not coming home. They're going to Afghanistan. Think about it. He is not somebody who is against war. He is for war. He is a warmonger like any other, person in office who claims one thing and does something else having to do with the troops being sent somewhere in the world. We don't have to have troops in Afghanistan. We don't have to have troops in South Korea. We really don't have to have troops in South Korea. We really don't have to have troops in Afghanistan. Now, you're asking, how could I say that? Well, it's really simple. Other countries could have troops in South Korea. China could position troops in South Korea to defend both countries against one another. China could step in and say, hey, look, America has already spent adequate resources, enough resources, sufficient resources allocated, X number of resources to trying to diffuse the situation for so many ages, for so many decades, and now we, China, are going to take responsibility because it's our region. This is Asia. It's our part of the world. China could do the same thing in Afghanistan. China could send troops to Afghanistan. Other countries, Italy could send troops to Afghanistan. Germany could send troops to Afghanistan. Africa could send troops to Afghanistan. The United States does not have to be in Afghanistan. The United States does not have to be in South Korea. Barack Obama is someone who led you to believe that he was going to bring the troops home from Iraq. We don't need troops in Iraq either. We really don't. Because China could send troops to Iraq. If they were really concerned about peace in the Middle East and peacekeeping operations, they could have alleviate our woes and say, look, as an ally of the United States of America, we are going to send troops to the Middle East because, America, you have done a great job and you have secured the peace as long as you could, and your troops are tired. It's time for them to go home. So now we, the Netherlands, are going to step in, or we, the Swiss. I know they're supposed to be neutral or what have you, but they could theoretically send troops there. The Canadians could send troops there. People from Iceland could send troops there. The United States doesn't have to be in any of these parts of the world. Theoretically, technically speaking, I have a point here. So when Barack Obama plays on your emotions and says, I'm the new president to be, and I want for you to think of me as a liberal, a Democrat, someone who is against war, and all these things, I am going to bring the troops home. I am just a fucking liar lying through my teeth, because what I am going to really do is send the fucking troops to Afghanistan to their deaths. Okay? So he's sending troops to Afghanistan, and this is somebody who you thought was a liberal, was a Democrat, was not a warmonger, was not like you said George Bush was. He's against war, and he's against war, and he's against war, but he's sending troops to war in Afghanistan. Doesn't make any sense. This administration is a con. It's a con game. It's like a shell game on the streets. You think you know where the peanut is, but you really don't, because it's a fucking con. President Barack Obama, the so-called president of the United States of America, is a con man. He could have handled the situation with North Korea very much differently. I wrote a letter to President Lee Myung-bak. I, Robert Lee Taylor, wrote a letter to the president, and I addressed my concerns about the region. Barack Obama hasn't lived in and out of the international Asian community for 10 years, as have I. He doesn't have the experience that I have in foreign affairs with regard to foreign relations, Asian affairs. He doesn't know the Asian international community, as do I. He has no idea. He's a newbie. He's a new jack. So what he should have done is he should have said, look, I want to sit down with North Korea. The very moment North Korea said, we are willing to sit down and discuss peace, we are willing to entertain the notion of returning to the six-party talks. That's what Barack Obama should have done. The very moment in space-time that came out of their mouths after Kim Jong-il visited China and then returned and said, okay, I've had this epiphany, I've had this revelation, let's sit down and talk. Barack Obama should have been there. He should have been like, look, I'm en route, let's sit down, let's talk about peace. No. Instead, what he wants to do is say that peace is contingent and is hinged upon discussing the matter of the 45 sailors. Look, what happened to those sailors was an absolute travesty. That's tragic. I mean, man, people's family members died because of a torpedo that was fired most likely from North Korea, as the evidence suggests and seems to substantiate. I mean, that's a fucking absolute tragic event that took place. That needs to be addressed, but so does peace. The larger peace needs to be addressed, and there was an opportunity for Barack Obama and South Korea to sit down with North Korea the very moment that the North said, hey, let's talk about things. We know you seem to think that, we're involved in these things, but hey, regardless, we have gripes with you. We have things that we want to discuss with you that in the past we said we could not discuss peace until we talked about those things. But right now, let's just let bygones be bygones for the moment, and let's just bury, the axe, bury the hatchet. It's all water under the bridge. Let's sit down and let's talk. Why is it that every time a country says this, the president's nowhere to be found? It's always, let's talk about something else, and let's just say that the North Koreans are behind sinking a ship, and, no, we can't sit down any longer until we discuss the sunken ship and all this shit. It's irresponsible. It's reckless. It makes no sense. And I wrote a letter to both the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency in Langley, Virginia, the British Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, MI5. I sent a letter to the media. I sent a letter to Lee Myung-bak, the conservative president of South Korea. I have a lot of respect. I have much deep respect for Lee Myung-bak and his administration. But I think that he ought to reconsider President Obama's handling of the matter and how he himself, Lee Myung-bak, might intervene and change the entire parameters of the game and sit down with North Korea and solve the matter himself.